Welcome everyone. I welcome you to another series of Learn with Your Coach. Now, this one is something you may have already seen on my YouTube channel. This is the second in line, and as I had mentioned earlier, here you will learn along with your coach, which is me. So, we pick up some few very interesting tips, tools, or wisdom from your coach, that's me. And I intend to share this with my audience, with my viewers, and also those who are listening and working along with me to learn. And we learn together along with each other. So I welcome you to the session. Let's get started. So today's topic is about finding your priority. Now, if we really go by the literal meaning of it, priorities are something which we regard as more important than any other thing. So, with a very small exercise as your coach, today I'll help you find your priority. So, towards the end of the session, you would learn to know how, in case if you ever feel lost or confused, how do you really figure out, as on today, what should be your priority? And you could repeatedly do this exercise as and when you feel you're caught up in the here and now of life and really can't make out which one you should pick the first. So let's go along and let's learn together. So as we begin trying to figure out our priorities, I want to ask you, did you ever experience this? So what you see on your screen at the right hand side is the list of very, very common scenarios in our life, which we all often go through, which we all often experience. And there could be more than this, but I've just mentioned the very common ones, wherein it could begin with, where we want to do several things, but we just don't know where to start. Or there could be multiple things we have at hand and we want to finish all of them all at once. Or we have a deadline looming on our head. We're just trying to wrap it up, finish it because the deadline is fast approaching. Or it also could be that there are a lot of things and you just don't know which one to pick the one first. I mean, where do you begin? Where do you start exactly? It's like, you're sitting in a room full of too many things and feeling overwhelmed, confused, stressed out, and just trying to figure out, hey, where do I even start? And where do I begin from? So these are very common scenarios, and that's where we actually, when we are into it, is where we exactly look for finding priorities. So in this session, I will help you figure out through a very small technique, in case you are going through the similar scenarios back in your life, using those techniques and trying to get your priorities of life as on today. So let's get going. As you've seen in the previous slide of the common scenarios, and if in case you had answered even a single yes to what we just saw, I think you've just come to the right resource. This session is just for you. Okay, let's get started. Get yourself a pen and a paper, and we both learn along with each other. Now that you have the pen and the paper, what we will do next is we will answer some series of questions that you see on your screen here. Always remember, coaching is all about you and your inner self. And before we figure out anything from our outside world, the underlying principle of coaching is we have to look inward. So even while you're trying to figure out and understand what is your current priority in life, the first step is that you begin with yourself. So with a pen and paper you have in hand, you start to answer questions that you see on your screen. The first question that you see is what needs less attention. Keep in mind that here we are not talking about short-term goals, mid-term or long-term plans or goals or anything of that sort. Here we are trying to figure out what is our priority. Therefore, whatever you're going to answer, there is no right and wrong to it. Plus, there is no short term, medium term, or long term plan to it. It's all about today. And from today, you're trying to figure out your priorities. So, when you answer the first question, which says, what needs less attention? Think of your current scenario in life and answer it to yourself. What is it that needs less attention? Similarly, go through the other questions where it is asking you about what needs more attention, or how would you like to spend more time, or where is it that you would like to spend less time? What is missing in work that should be there? And as we move ahead, I'll put forth other questions to you. The next series of questions that you see on your screen is what is missing in leisure that should be there? What is most important to you right now? And if you could do anything with no limits, what would it be? So in total, there are 8 questions. Basically, the theme here is that these questions are some way or the other connected to different spheres of your life, whether it's to do with your work, some to do with your leisure, some to do with, you know, your time, the way you're spending it, and the sequence of importance. So what's most important to you right now? And the last one, the last question, it says, if you could do anything with no limits. So this is a bit of hypothetical question where it's the expert is asking you, is there anything that you could do anything with no limits? So for a second, believe that there are no limits to it. And when I say limits, it's about like perhaps there are no challenges, no roadblocks, no obstacles, or no limitations. And what would that be? And will you be doing it? So try to spend some time here and answer all these 8 questions. After you're done with all the questions, all the 8 questions that we've just seen in the previous slides, now give yourself some silent time. We call this a pause in coaching. Once you're done with all the questions and the answers, just sit and relax. Give yourself some me time, some silence time. Reflect inward. Now, 2 things always keep in mind while you're answering, and I'm repeating it here so that you answer it as accurately as possible. 1, always pick the current scenarios in life. And the second part of it is that there are no right and wrong answers. So just go ahead with whatever comes and crosses your mind and answer them. So once you're through with those answering of 8 questions, and having given yourself a pause time, some bit of a silent time to yourself, come back to this particular slide. Now this, it is asking you, what did you learn about yourself? Now in this is basically a bit of an extension of what we just answered in those 8 questions. Here we are analyzing what did we just understood. So we're just gathering all the responses to the 8 questions and we analyze in sync with the current scenario and write that down, maybe on the pen and paper that you have. And this is something which is giving you an insight about what did you learn about yourself. After you're done with answering all those 8 questions, plus you also had gathered a good insight about your own self, now is the time we come to the final and the closing of the session, where we find our priorities. So one principle that most of us work with is that we cannot do everything all at once. This is something that applies to each one of us. We really cannot complete everything. So since we are here with an intent to figure out what is our priority from our loads of work and stuff that we have at hand, and to do so, we first went through those 8 questions and answers, then we did an analysis of that, then we learned something about our own self. Now, what you need to do is, from your analysis and from your responses, pick up 3 top priorities, because it will not only provide insights about you, about your own inner self, but From there, you could choose what should be your 3 top priorities. Since nobody's life runs on the same principle, we have different scenarios, circumstances, and timeline and different phase of life going on for each one of us. Similarly, our responses, our insights, and answers will not be the same. So, we need to pick up from what we've gathered the top 3 priorities. Once you have picked up your top 3 priorities, list them down. The way you see it on the slide here, it's listed as priority 1, 2, and 3. And once you listed them down, make sure you put it in a place. I have given some examples here, like on a postcard, on a fridge, or a place where you often see it, meaning maybe even at your workplace if you have a small board or a post-it, whatever the case may be. Try to put these 3 top priorities but with a timeline, that in the next 1 week or the next 15 days or in the next 1 month, these are my 3 priorities by which I shall try and work on it and ensure that by the time, that's the deadline that you set for yourself, you will achieve it. Thank you so much for being with me and learning along with me. I hope by now you are able to figure out a very interesting way and learn how do we find our priorities in life and live by it. These are my coordinates that you see on the screen. As a life coach, I help people from all walks of life. So you could reach me via email in case you have anything further to discuss, to share, or if you want to get coached by me. And below is the number. I work out of India and these are my coordinates. So I look forward to connect with you soon. And in case you also need to further know the details about this particular presentation, there's a link that I will share in the description of this video, which you could see, connect, and reach out to me. Thank you so much, and we shall connect again with another session of learning with your coach. Bye for now.